You're good. Okay. All right, here we go. All right, welcome back. Sorry. Welcome back to another episode of the Dental Marketing Secrets Podcast. This is episode 131, and I have Beth Leach with me today. And Beth is a marketing expert. And it's funny, as the more I learn about Beth, the more that I realize she's kind of done it all in marketing. So I'm really, really excited to talk with Beth today. We're going to dive into AI visibility, but a little background on Beth. She's has more than 25 years experience helping practices grow. She has a host of companies. She's Orthodontic Revolution, the practice marketer. She's worked with over 3,000 dental and orthodontic practices, and really has spoken probably at every event, I think, under the sun at this point. And we're going to dive into, like I mentioned, AI specifically, and how this is really evolving. And it's over the last couple of years. I mean, it's interesting, but especially I feel like in the last couple of months. So excited to talk about that. But Beth, first off, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's exciting to be here. Thanks so much for asking me.
You bet, you bet. And well, let's talk a little bit about this whole scenario. I mean, it's funny. Well, let me ask you this, Beth. When did you first start seeing AI kind of creep into the industry?
Yeah, it was when when AI first started, I was right at the kind of the forefront of it. So a little bit of history about me is my mom was the third employee of IBM Research. And so she started out like in 1956, programming when there were no computers that we know of today, right?
Yeah.
So I spent a lot of time learning how to program as a young kid. And so when AI came out, I was like, okay, this is a game changer.
Yeah.
This is going to change everything. And I was at a dental monitoring meeting actually, and I was sitting next to a woman who was an office manager, and she said, "I'll never use AI. I don't see any
Yeah.
value to it." And this is a couple of years ago. And I said, "Oh my goodness." I said, "What are the things that you have to do that you really hate doing that are just so hard for you?" And the first thing she said was, "Well, last week we had a child whose mother died of
Mm.
breast cancer. And the hardest thing I ever had to do was write that letter
Yeah.
of, saying how sorry I was for this child and their family."
Right.
And I said, "Yeah, I totally can see that. That would be heart-wrenching." And she said it took me like 5 hours to write it because I kept
Oh, wow.
crying. And I said, "Here, let's not identify him, but let's just put in a kid's name, and let's put in the scenario, and let's see what Chat GPT can write for you."
Yeah.
And boom, it came out with this amazing letter, and she went, "Oh my God, that's so much better than I wrote." And I said, "See, I mean, this is like literally the first, couple of months when AI really came out on the scene in November. This was maybe February, and a couple of years ago, and she was blown away, you know?
Yeah. Well, and that's just it. I mean, as we're discovering more and more applications for AI, that can really transform our everyday lives, from just searching to answers like that. Or, I've used it before trying to get counsel with my kids, I mean, like kind of
Yeah.
put in the scenario like you mentioned and just see what am I not considering? It doesn't always answer it correctly for me, but it gives me those ideas to start thinking about it in maybe a different light. So, well, let's talk about how does that translate for a practice? I mean, what are you seeing? Well, I guess we should start at the beginning. What is, for those that aren't fully aware of AI and AI visibility, how would you describe that to someone if they've heard of AI, I'm sure at this point, but
Yeah.
just kind of set the scene a little bit for how this is
So,
different from, traditional SEO and searches.
yeah. So I started in marketing dental and orthodontic practices in the early 90s. So right when it became kind of legal to market. Okay.
Yeah.
And there are only a few things that have made such a dynamic shift in the way that we market our practices. And the internet was one, and AI is the next.
Yeah.
It is something that is going to dramatically change the way we do everything. So, AI visibility really, we call it GEO, okay, which is Generative Engine Optimization, okay? And that means it's like the process of making somebody who is going to ChatGPT or even just searching Google, because Google has embedded AI in it, to be able to find your practice.
Hmm.
So traditionally, when you think of going to Google and people looking up your practice, right, and traditional SEO, you would patients would go to Google and search in top dentist in, whatever city you're in, right,
Hmm.
and they'd have a 3-pack or 5-pack, sometimes a 7-pack in the old days of information of doctors right there, and then they'd have more listings. Well, that's all shifted. So now what GEO does is tries to answer the question that patients are really asking, which is things like, I need a crown. What's the best place to get a crown in my area? And it will go and search out the best dentists for that talk about that and that
Hmm.
have been either awarded, whatever awards or whatever, are highly regarded in that particular thing, and give them that information, or people that talk about it in the reviews. I mean, there's a
Right.
lot of ways to get found in AI, but what AI does is looks at what your real question is, and not just top dentist with a list.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a
It's
big,
so that's the
big shift.
difference.
Yeah. Yeah, it is because it's also, as we're seeing this evolve, we're seeing that user search history plays into this. And they were already starting to pull from that before, but it seems to be even more the case now where they're looking at what else has this person or this patient been doing online that would help, kind of fill in the context of, like you were saying, what is their exact question that they're really getting after. And that's a much different approach, I mean, then, because now I mean, there's potentially, you multiply the number of answers or questions that patients have, and now
Right.
you're trying to cover all of those instead of just, a keyword or something like that.
It's why when you're thinking about your website and what how visible it is, it's why you have to restructure. Anybody who hasn't restructured their website within the last year is now at a deficit,
Yeah.
because the way that a AEO, which is answer engine optimization, and GEO work is different than the way traditional SEO worked. SEO was focused on keywords, AEO is focused on answers.
Hmm.
Okay. And that's what generative AI is looking for.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And there's certainly some crossover, right? I mean, from traditional
Mhm.
best practices in SEO. You mentioned reviews. That's always been a big component, and that will continue to be as we're seeing, yeah, all these,
I was just
and
going to say, so when you look at like traditional versus AI, there's a huge amount of crossover, right?
Mhm.
So consistent business listings across the web, which is called NAP, which
Mhm.
every good SEO person knows that's the first thing you fix,
Yeah.
right? Then reviews and reputation, second thing you fix. If you don't have good review numbers, and I mean, you got to have a lot of them,
Hmm.
that's important. But it's not just, it used to be the number, right?
Right.
Now it's what is the patient saying?
Hmm.
Like, I had my crown done. I'm from Arlington and I drove to Belmont to get
Yeah.
my crown done, right? And so that puts in context for AI,
Hmm.
right?
Yep.
And then it's third party sites, which additionally, SEO has in the past
Hmm.
been very cognizant of making sure you have link backs and good schema and
Hmm.
all of the things that a good SEO does. So all of those things are still important, right? They're just in a different way now. We just got to restructure how we think.
Yeah, it's almost more elevated in the terms of you mentioned reviews is a good example where it was more quantity based and now it is more quality and quantity and takes that whole thing into consideration with yeah, it talks specifically about what they're saying, what they're mentioning, if it's a crown, if it's a specific service, if it's how long they waited, if it's, I mean, it's even insurance and things like that. It can extract all of that and answer these very specific questions from those
Yes.
some of those reviews. And so,
And
yeah, it becomes that's a great point is just trying to get your patients to be more specific when they're leaving a review.
right. And here's the hard part from an SEO perspective. Like all of us who've been doing SEO for 25 years
Hmm.
are now looking at it. We know how to measure Google.
Yeah.
We've always known how to measure Google. There's authority rankings. There's, I mean, we know exactly SERPs and, we know how to do this. We can't measure ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude,
Hmm.
Perplexity.
Yeah.
We can't
Hmm.
yet. I mean, we're starting to see, you can put code in to try to see where, things are leading, but it's just coming now.
Yeah.
And it hasn't been here before. So it's very hard from an SEO perspective, from somebody who's been doing this forever, to work how we're working when we don't have the data in
Hmm.
front of us to say how many people are actually using this and
Yeah.
what are they asking, you know?
Yeah. And that was my next question really is just how do, how many we hear about some of the statistics in terms of usage for ChatGPT and Gemini and all those, but we don't it's hard to really gauge exactly how many more patients are using that to search for a dentist. But the like you mentioned before, I mean, Google's has that embedded and so it's starting to already do that automatically, with their AI
Yeah.
overviews. And what's interesting about those two is that, I mean, you get references, but you don't always get the click through like you would traditionally, where you'd be on the search results and then they'd click through and then they'd have to go and do their own diligence basically and and figure that out. But now it's trying to answer that question for you to remove that extra work from the patient side, but it doesn't always lead to a click. So
Right.
it's really different that way.
It's interesting. I've been in this industry a really long time, and what I've seen change is dramatic. So in the 90s, I mean, nobody even wanted to advertise in the yellow pages. I mean, that was the
Mhm.
big thing. Oh my gosh, if you advertise in the yellow pages, you must be desperate, right?
Yeah.
Anything above a bold listing.
Yeah.
Um, and now it's, and then we went to like specialists in particular, because I deal with a lot of orthodontists. Specialists in particular were getting all of their patients from general dentists, right?
Hmm. Right.
And and even then, we knew that the biggest and best source for patients has always been referral.
Right.
So no matter what you do, referral has been the thing. Well, Google search came along, and obviously that jumped up in the amount of people that were finding you online. But
Hmm.
still, even when Google search came in, we never saw a drop, specifically in orthodontics, below about 75% of patients coming in from referral of some kind, whether that's doctor referral or patient referral.
Hmm.
So when we think about how AI is going to change things, yes, AI is going to answer questions, but your patients are still going to talk to their friends.
Right.
And the questions that they have that are getting answered by AI, then they're going to go ask their friends about it.
Yeah.
So we have to realize that this is not a takeover in the way that we think about Google coming in and being a completely different beast. This is a question answer conversation that people then have with AI, but then they bring it into the real world too,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it's a flow. And
Hmm.
and patients find you differently now than they found you then. But the flow of relationship building is still the same.
Yeah. Well, and that's so interesting you mentioned that, Beth, because as you were talking about that and the referral side and how that's still the major driver, do you predict that AI will start to pull in? I mean, it's already using social media, which it hasn't, it really hasn't in the past a whole lot, but now it's pulling in Reddit conversations, it's pulling in posts from Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and all that stuff. But do you envision that it might recognize who your contacts are because you're logged into Facebook and pull in like their anything that might be relevant from a friend's
I think
perspective?
that's I think that's the next thing coming. I mean,
Wow. Yeah.
I have kids and you do too, and I mean, they're all worried about this, right? Don't share anything. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's coming, and I think we're going to see where it goes because there might be some backlash on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I do envision that as something
Yeah.
that's coming, and I think any kind of personal information needs to be kept offline.
Yeah.
If
I
you
know.
really want it to be personal, don't ever post it on Instagram or TikTok.
Yeah. Yeah. So true. So true. Well, it's so interesting because, yeah, everything is shifting so dramatically. And I think as a result, a lot of people that are, want to follow this, they don't really know what to do about it. I mean, because it's changing so rapidly, they're not sure if I do this now, is it going to change in just a matter of months? And that might be the case. But uh, if you were consulting a practice that wants to be more present on AI, what would be some of your top priorities? You mentioned the website specifically, and we could start there. But what are some specific things that AI is looking for? You
Not
mentioned
even the
reviews, but yeah,
Yeah, not even the website. I would start with the Google Business Profile.
yeah,
I think that is the key to everything, and I think it's the place that most practices miss.
mm,
Because most practices are so focused on their website or their social media or dancing on TikTok. They're not, they spend more time filming and editing dances on TikTok that may blow up to people who aren't in their market and who don't care about them,
yeah,
and no time optimizing their Google business profile, which actually matters.
yeah,
So the Google business profile is a number one. That's the first thing I would do. Get onto Google, make sure you control your Google business profile. Go in there and fill out every service that you provide. Fill out make sure you're posting on there 3 times a week.
hmm,
Do the updates. Do all the things that Google wants, including photos and anything that Google is looking for in that Google business profile. You want to put it on there.
yeah,
Booking where people can book online. Booking online is a huge deal, and a lot of people still are scared of it. But man, I'm telling you, it is the thing. I mean, we book literally everything else online. I'm not sure why dentists and orthodontists have a problem with booking online, but
yeah,
that's the first thing I would do. Then
yeah,
I would look at getting high quality patient reviews.
hmm,
So, patient reviews are some of the most important things you can do. It's about the number, but it's really about the quality
yeah,
and getting people who are going to really write something about their experience. And now Google has come out with this whole new thing where you can't or you are not supposed to be asking for a review while they're in the practice.
right,
So, after they have been at the practice, you can text them and ask for a review. I mean, everybody's still asking for reviews in the practice, so I don't know how it's going to
yeah,
change. But
right.
the new rules say you shouldn't be.
I know, I know.
So, but the reality is, talking to your patients and maybe asking them, how was your experience? And
Hmm.
then talking them through the whole, if you would write a review for us, it would be wonderful. And if you could talk about the things you really loved about our practice, we would so appreciate it, because reviews that talk about the things that we do well really help us to find patients just like you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
And that is so valuable. I mean, from an SEO perspective, from an AI perspective, from a just a team feedback perspective, to realign and get everyone like, oh, this is why we do what we do. So it's so important. And it really isn't that hard. It's more getting in the habit, and then it becomes fun, because you're getting this positive feedback loop, you
I
know.
think the thing that a lot of practices miss is you have to ask.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't care if you're texting, because what I hear a lot of is, oh, well, our system texts them. Okay, yeah, but you're in front of them, you're
Mhm.
talking to them, you need to ask them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so true. And they know they will say, well, I've got this and this I got to do. They do have a lot of things on their plate, but it really is just a matter of making it part of your process, and then looking for those triggers, when patients
Right,
comment on how great it was or how
right.
less stressful it was. That's a perfect time to ask. And like you said, you can frame it so that it's, hey, I'm going to text you after this appointment with a link, so make it easier for you, and then have like little instructions in there. But just planting that seed is going to make your conversion rate so much higher getting those reviews.
Right. I mean, that's the big thing. And then, of course, consistent NAP, so that name, address, phone
Hmm.
needs to be the same. You have to have strong website content. You need to have, if you are a member of the ADA, CDA,
Hmm.
AAO, whatever it is that are the memberships within your practice, you need to have those on your website. You need to have links. You need to make sure that your information on their website is accurate. You would not believe the number of
That's true.
people
That's
I
a good one.
see with inappropriate, inaccurate information, especially
Yeah.
young docs who've worked at two or three different places and now have their own and never updated their AAO membership profile.
Mhm.
So that kind of stuff is really, really important, because those are authority citations.
Yeah.
Okay. And then there's other stuff. I mean, structured schema, which is a SEO thing, which most orthodontists don't want to have anything to do with.
Mm.
But you can talk to and make sure that your website people are doing that. Um, there's other little things, but the top ones that they can handle are the ones that I've just discussed.
Yeah.
Really. I mean,
And those are
I've
things that all practices can do on their own if they really,
right.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, these are things practices can do on their own to improve their optimization online. And that's really the things that I like to focus on.
Hmm. Yeah.
If you know, they we have a website that we created called AI Smile Score,
Hmm.
and they can get on there and see where they are in AI and look at the things that they need to do to improve themselves. And it's free. So, might as well go use it, right?
Yeah.
But honestly, those things are the most important things they can do. Just
Yeah.
get them done themselves.
Right. Right. And there's so, and it really, I mean, it's not that hard to create that type of content. When you mentioned Google Business Profile, adding posts, and a lot of people will push back and say, I don't know what to post. I don't know what to say. But it's a lot of it just comes back to, what are the questions that you get every day, all day? I mean,
Right.
what types of insurance do you accept? When are your hours? When are you open? Or what about emergency? What about this and that? That's all great content, and that all of those can answer those questions that are going to become more specific, over time, as people get more and more familiar with using AI, because they realize the capability of AI to pull from all these sources effectively to answer it more specifically. And that's really the cool thing about it. But I loved what you said. I mean, just we can do all those things on your own, if you just
Right.
focus on that, and then updating that on a regular basis, looking at that. And then I would say, I'd probably suggest too, just, you've got Google's the primary driver for reviews, but there's other of those high authority sites that you can get reviews on, health grades. You have things like even Facebook recommendations, like those still pull in, not as much, but they still will, Yelp is a driver too. And
Yelp.
then you get
Yeah.
some of those pages that will help with that authority. Because if you kind of think of it in terms of their goal is trying to provide the best answer possible, and they can, and so if you can put together the best, most, what's the right word, but the most comprehensive case for you to be the best answer, and that's going to include all those things that you mentioned, having other sites talk about you, having reviews from patients, making sure all your listings are accurate, all that information, then it's going to be much easier for you to show up.
I mean, it's really about understanding what the questions are and answering them. And the best way that I've always done this, I've done this for 30 years, asking the
Mm-hmm.
doctors, what are the questions that you get asked 50 times a week?
Yeah.
Write them down and put them on social media with
Yeah.
answers. Put them into Google Business Profile, same exact thing.
Yeah.
Put them onto your website. The big thing that a lot of people don't understand is that now you should have questions and answers on every page of your website. Any
Mm.
service page within your website, whether that's, you know, crowns or a Solia laser
Yeah.
Invisalign, every single page should have a Q&A at the bottom that answers those specific questions. And I would prefer that it not be answered by AI, that
Yeah.
you actually sit down and answer it the way that you would answer it
Mm-hmm.
with a patient.
Yeah. Yeah. And the easy way to do that too is just record yourself
Exactly.
talking to a patient. I mean, you're a concert pitch essentially, and you can just transcribe that or use that video, and do both. I mean, it's so much easier. And I think that's kind of the danger with AI, is that we ask it to do it for us. We glance at it and then we say, okay. And unfortunately, a lot of times it ends up looking like the same thing that everyone else has because it probably is. There was
Right.
a, there was like a celebrity, I forget who it was, but they had a job opening and they had all these applicants, and all the applicants used the same thank you follow-up response from AI, and she didn't hire any of them. She's like, nope, that's a hard no.
Yeah. I mean, and if you look at, and now it cracks me up because I'm in the industry, I get so many advertisements for marketing firms, in
Mhm.
dental and orthodontics. And so I get a billion of them. And I look at every single one of them and it's all the same. It's fear and it's trepidation and
Mhm.
I can solve your problem with X.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's AI, it's fully AI.
Yeah.
And that's that's the unfortunate part of what's happening today. I mean, I use AI constantly,
Hmm.
probably 6, 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
Um, but it doesn't mean that I allow AI to dictate every part of everything I do, because it
Yeah.
can't, because it's wrong so much.
Yeah. It is. It is. So there's that danger for sure. Um, but I think like you said, if you just can answer a lot of those questions as you normally would, and I think that's a great place to start. And if you were to, take Beth's advice and really just list out those questions, you would have content for days and days and days. I mean, have content for the entire year. If you're talking about each specific service that you provide, each treatment, you go into, well, all the FAQs in terms of how long does it take? What can I expect? This treatment compared to that treatment. I mean, you can go into all the nitty gritty, and again, you'd answer all those questions, which is great. But then it's just, you're going to show up for those answers on AI, more likely to show up for those answers on AI, and it's going to be easier for your patients to feel comfortable moving forward because you've answered those questions in advance.
And you can also look at Answer the Public,
Mm,
which is a great site to find out what questions people are asking. If you're new in practice and don't know what
yeah.
questions are being asked, go to answerthepublic.com and it will give you all the questions that people are asking online. And then you personally think about those questions and write that out.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an easy one. Easy, great resource for sure. Okay, so Beth, what would you say if you were practice owner and you were next 90 days and you hadn't done anything about AI before, and you kind of mentioned, I'm guessing you're probably say the same things that you mentioned before, but anything, just recap those if you're first 90 days.
First 90 days, I would optimize my GBP listing with current photos and information, make sure every single field is filled out. So make sure you are posting regularly. So that means 3 times a week on GBP, that it's content that makes sense, that you have questions up there, and that you're answering those questions. And you can feed your own questions in. So
Yeah.
if you want to put questions, then you can answer them. There's a lot of information that can go onto GBP. It is your number one place. Number two, in the next 90 days, create content around those top 20 to 50 patient questions that you get every single day. When your patients come in, just take the week and write down every single question, and then look at the questions that you've had over the course of the week and say, okay, I saw these 20 questions 5 or 6 times. Therefore, those are going to be the ones I start with, and then go on to the next set. But look at how those are running, and then put those on your social media, put those in their GBP listing, put those onto your website as well, because then it looks at, because AI is looking everywhere,
Yep.
right? So you're going to have those things. And then I would really, the review generation thing is huge. And I would make sure you have a very good system for review generation, and collecting high quality patient reviews, not just number of patient reviews,
Yeah.
right? I think that would be where I would start,
Hmm.
and I would get a baseline for where you are now, and then do this, and make sure you take like snapshots of everything, so like how many reviews you have today,
Yep.
and give yourself a goal, and say, okay, and give your team a goal. This shouldn't be owner only. This
Right.
needs to be the entire team. I think the biggest downfall that I see amongst docs is, I'm going to do it all myself.
Hmm.
And the biggest pain point for doctors that come to me is, I have to do everything myself. My team doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
So what I would say to that is, you pay them a salary to be there. This is part of their job. No matter if
Hmm.
they think it is or not, it's on you to make sure they know that marketing is part of their job. I don't care what position they have in the practice.
Hmm.
Everybody needs to be part of the marketing team. Everybody needs to be asking for reviews. Everybody needs to be talking to patients about, how important it is to get referrals of friends. You know, Whatever their role is, there is a
Hmm.
place for them to talk to patients about building the practice.
Yeah. I couldn't have said that any better. It's so vital. Every interaction is marketing. I mean, you either are building trust or you're removing trust, by those interactions. And so every person is so vital that way. And it's cool too, because as you get them involved and as you review and evaluate their performance, some of them are just going to thrive. Like they love the responsibility. They love to be reviewed. Like we like to keep score in our life. And this is part of keeping score. And I mean, I'm thinking of one practice in particular, that very small practice. It's in a more remote area. It's hard to find team members. They kind of run a skeleton crew because it's hard to find help. And
Yeah.
this one gal does a million things, but she also took on review generation. And really, because of her, they were stagnant at like 30 something reviews total forever, for years. And now within like 9 months, they're like 160 or something like that. And just, it's so cool because she gets excited about it. she gets that reward for doing a great job. It's really helpful for the practice, but it's something, I mean, that everyone can take part of.
It is unfortunate that it's usually the busiest person, the most successful
Yeah,
person, the most trustworthy person who's always the one who does another thing,
yeah, yeah,
you know? And so, yeah, I'm glad that she did, but also it's time for everybody to step up. There's no
yeah.
room for slackers anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. And that should be part of weekly evaluation, weekly huddles. You keep it simple. That's what I tell people. I kind of go back to early elementary stage where you just print out a little thermometer chart and just mark off how many you've gotten for the week or the month. And we are kind of visual creatures, I think. And so I think that helps. I mean, oftentimes I find myself, I may have already completed a task, but I write it down in my planner. I have a written planner just so I can cross it off. Like it's so funny, but
I
we
used
love
to,
that
I
satisfaction.
used Todoist. I use Todoist, and that's great. But
Yeah,
also, like we all wear these, right? Whether it's I wear two. I mean,
yeah,
I've got my Apple Watch and my Hume, and
yeah,
they're like giving me data points on every single thing I'm doing, right? Um, so we all like tracking stuff. I think that's
hmm,
kind of part of who we are as
yep,
humans. So having that tracker, visual tracker for your team is really important to building those. Um, and it doesn't just need to be reviews, it's also
hmm,
referrals, right? I mean,
yeah,
that's the big one that nobody talks about. And
hmm,
it's the hardest one for doctors to do. I spent the first 5 years of my career training docs on how to ask for referrals.
so,
I
yeah,
mean, it's so hard for them. The easiest thing is the same way we've done it for 30 years, and that is stand in front of a mirror and say it to yourself in a mirror until you feel comfortable.
yeah, and watch how your face looks and watch. I mean,
Exactly. And then at that point, then start doing it with your staff. And then take some really trusted patients that you love and they love you, try it on them,
hmm,
you know, and roll with it that way because referrals are a key. No matter how much we say about AI, and there's
yeah,
so much more. I mean, we just scratched the surface on the marketing side. I mean, we have so much to do, and the AI that is coming out right now is great because you can do follow-ups, you can do pending, you can do automated letters, you can do automated emails and texts and chat bots and I mean
yeah,
the stuff that I'm building now. A friend of mine is well, let's just say she's a programmer for the government in AI. We won't tell you which branch, but
yeah,
she and I are working together on a new system, but it's really all AI based and all about connecting and following up with all of these different systems that we have out there. And
yeah,
so AI is huge. I mean, it's going to affect you. And if you think you aren't using it, you are.
yeah,
Because every time you go to Google, you're using AI. Every
hmm,
time in everything you do, you're using AI. So get over it
yeah,
and accept it and move towards how does this make my life better,
hmm,
right? And then how can I build on that to help my practice grow? So there's a lot coming. There's I think there's so much in orthodontics and dentistry that is coming. Um, it'll be interesting to see what happens next. And we've just touched on a very basics, but the things that we've talked about today, I feel like are things that the doctors can use tomorrow
yep.
themselves and not have to like pay somebody to do it.
Yeah. Well, and what I love about what you suggested too, in terms of the content, I mean, that's stuff that those are assets that you can create and reuse again and again and again, whether it's social media, whether it's on the website, whether it's an email, maybe you have a short video explaining the differences between, who should consider traditional metal braces versus Invisalign. I mean, that can replace so much time, for, for you doing that
Yeah.
manually. It's really, really neat. You will appreciate all the effort you put in to creating all this stuff. Um, Well, Beth, I want to say thank you so much for joining us today. I have more questions, but I'm going to try and cajole you to come back another time. We'll talk about referrals, because that's one that I know if you're going to get good at anything, you should get good at referrals. So we'll talk
Yeah.
about that. But a few last questions. Beth, if people want to get in touch with you and learn more about what you're doing, what's the best way to do that?
You can email me, beth@practicemarketer.com, or, give me a holler. My phone number is 818-845-0011. You can also
Perfect.
look us up online, practicemarketer.com.
Okay. We'll add that in the show notes. Final question, maybe the most important question. Who is your pick to win the World Cup?
That's a hard one, especially
Well, who do
because
you?
a couple of my teams got knocked out yesterday.
Oh, shoot.
I mean,
Netherlands?
Germany and I don't know. I mean, I'm hoping for USA. It
Yeah.
would be a first,
Right.
but I think we've really improved our abilities out on the field as far as men goes. Our women
Yeah.
have dominated
Oh,
for
they've been so good.
forever, but and I'm a huge soccer fan, so
Yeah. Yeah. I know. If it's not the US, typically I root for Italy because I spent some time over there, but they didn't even make it, which is tragic. And I don't even want to get into that.
yep.
But I love Morocco. Actually, I love the way that they
Yeah.
play. And
Did you see that game? That was
oh, it was
amazing.
so good. Oh my gosh. I thought for sure they had it in PKs, and then they started to falter, and I was like, oh no.
That was crazy.
That was
That was
wild.
absolutely insane. And yeah, I watched the whole thing on our big screen. I was just like,
Yeah.
wow.
I know. I know. Well, we'll see what happens. But, well, Beth, thanks again for coming. And I'd love to have you back in the future. Appreciate all the insight and your experience.
Thank you, Mark. Take care. Have a great one.
You too.